Coming up on today's episode.
When you're in that state of feeling completely lost, it can be really hard to find the motivation for anything. And I think what I want to say is if you are sat here listening to this and going, I haven't got the energy for this, I do feel completely lost, I don't know where I'm going, you are not alone. And that is a normal sensation to feel. We have all felt at one point like we are in this holding period, that we are stuck, that we know what lights us up, but we can't get there. We can't see it. We keep getting knocked back. And I think what I wanted to say is that's really normal. And that could be because you are in a holding space for a reason. You know, you can't move forward just yet because there are lessons you need to learn. There are people that need to be removed. There are something else that's waiting to come in. So don't sit there and beat yourself up.
Welcome to Spirit in Sass, the podcast where intuition meets attitude and real talk gets a little more magical.
Hosted by us, Kelly Clark
and Jodie Mayhead.
This is your space for soulful insight, honest conversations, and a few laughs along the way. Hello everybody. Welcome to Spirit in Sass, episode number 6, I believe. I probably got that wrong. But yeah, welcome back. We are ready for another podcast. We hope you are too. We hope you've been enjoying it. And this week we are going to talk to you all about how do you find your purpose? What on earth is a purpose and how are you going to find it? So one of the first things to really think about is kind of what on earth is a purpose, I think. And sometimes I think we get confused with our job and having our family and, you know, getting our house, kind of things, you know, those tick box in life that we feel we have to achieve, being our purpose. And that's not to say that elements of those things can't be a part of your purpose, but that's not necessarily what's going to sort of drive you forward. So I think what we'll start is really look at a few definitions around purpose and what that actually means.
So I did have a quick look up in the old dictionary and on what actually the definition is for purpose. And I'm going to have to read it off this piece of paper because I can't actually remember. But it says, the reason for which something is done, created, or exists. But I think from a lifestyle perspective, it kind of says intention to achieve long-term goals that is personally meaningful and makes a positive impact. So I think there was two key bits in there. It's the meaningful and the positive impact. Those two bits I think are key when talking about purpose. How about you?
Well, so I've got generally defined as the continuous act of living, learning, and assigning personal meaning to your own existence through connection, contribution, and self-actualization. But I think from all the research and things that I've looked at, one of the key takeaways for me was that your purpose can continuously evolve.
I absolutely came across that too, and it actually made total sense, didn't it? That as we evolve through life and on our life's journey, what once was our purpose will also evolve too. You're not probably going to have the same purpose possibly in your 60s as what you were, you know, when you're in your teens.
Absolutely. And I think certainly when you're younger as well, purpose kind of eludes you because you're so hell-bent on achievement. And I think achievement and purpose are slightly different things. I've spent a lot of time working on what I feel my purpose is, and that looks very different from when I achieve things. And I'm not saying that you don't achieve things when you find your purpose, because you actually do, but rather than them becoming those tick box exercises, yeah, great, I got the house of my dreams, or yeah, I've had big children and things like that, it becomes about something bigger. It becomes about a fulfillment that makes you tick rather than the things that you want to have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we get older, I think when you're kind of in your younger years, you're not so hell-bent on trying to find your purpose because you're out living your life. You're experiencing new things, whether it be kind of through education, friendships, travel, whatever. Your life is still very much evolving. You're learning about yourself. You're still very much growing. You know, you're of that like phase where, you know, you've got, you know, the whole life ahead of you type of scenario. I think as we move through life and we start to get more into our middle-aged and beyond years, that we can almost start to panic a little bit that time is running out, and there becomes a sense of urgency then of what is my purpose, which actually can block you from kind of from finding it.
Yeah, and that's, we get so kind of, we feel like we really need to have this sense of what it's all about, certainly as you get older, you know, as kids leave home. And you know, I was also looking at, I think what's really interesting is, whilst thinking about what is purpose, how do you lose purpose? What is it like to feel like when you don't have purpose? And there's a lot of things that can lead up to that, and it's particularly around, like, if you're experiencing job burnout, if your kids are leaving home, as I've just mentioned, or you retire, or maybe you lose somebody close to you, suddenly all these things that you've attached so much meaning to your identity, you know, I'm Kelly, I'm a marketing consultant, that's who I am. Or I'm Kelly, I'm a mum to boys, that's who I am. But we kind of take on these identities and they start to fill our purpose. And then when these things get removed from us, we kind of start to sit and think like, oh my God, what's my purpose now? And I think that's why it's so important to think of purpose on a larger scale, because if things start to change and evolve, you've still got that core understanding of what it is that lights you up and fulfills you. And that's really what it is. It's a sense of fulfillment, and it doesn't have to be huge. I think we mistake purpose as, I need to be Mother Teresa, I need to change the world, you know, I need to help billions of people or animals or whatever. It doesn't have to be global change. It can be as simple as being that person who lights up the room, who makes somebody smile, who, you know, has a really calming effect on animals, or, you know, all those different things. If it lights you up and it brings you that energy, which I'm always harping on about, that can be a purpose in itself.
Yeah, purpose does not need, I think we kind of make the assumption that your purpose has to be one huge, big kind of out there offering, and actually, which then becomes overwhelming in its own right. And then we almost, you know, backtrack from that. Actually, exactly what you've just said, Kels. We go through phases and your purpose will change. And actually, there will be periods for a lot of the time where exactly that, you just, you know, if you make one person smile in that day, that is, you know, a really love, you will have made so much difference to that person. It has meaning, and you will have probably felt quite lit up by knowing that you've done that. That is itself is only, you know, that's just one person, but that would have meant everything to that one person, and you would have still got the same kind of feedback from that as if you'd touched the hearts of, you know, 10,000. Really, it doesn't have to be on a grand scale. It can be literally, you know, cooking nice food for somebody. It can be, you know, providing a listening ear. It can be doing acts of service within the community, voluntary work, you know, whatever. It doesn't have to be on some huge scale, and it doesn't have to earn an income.
Yeah
We don't, you know, sometimes I think we can mistake purpose with job, career. And actually, a lot of the time, our careers probably are not our purpose. And this is something actually we can debate over a little bit, because we're both a little bit at this moment where we're working our purposes out, and then we're trying to almost align them with our careers. But I guess there is an element that our job might always just be our job, and it provides the money to keep the roof over our head, and our purpose will show up in a whole different way, and it won't be through our jobs.
Yeah, it's actually sometimes your job can be the reason you disconnect from your purpose. So like sometimes if you're lacking that sense of purpose, it can come from like a disconnect between your daily actions and your personal values. So it's really important to understand your personal values. So if your personal values are, you know, I can't stand liars, I need to be 100% truthful in everything I do. That's what brings me purpose, by being really authentic. And, you know, yet your job is in an area where you quite often have to stretch figures, or you have to tell a white lie to a customer, or whatever that looks like. If that is continuously disconnecting you from your values, that will slowly internally create a sense of disconnect from you and your purpose. So, and again, this comes back to the fact of, we know we can't all go, well, sod it, we don't want to do that job anymore. You know, we have all got to feed the family and pay the bills. But you have to measure that over time, really. And again, it is all about taking action. Everything is about moving towards a way of life that you want to live. So you need to really reevaluate, not all in one go, but just start reevaluating what you do in your daily life that creates a sense of disconnect from your values. And probably first of all, what you need to understand is what your values are, because we live and breathe being a person, but I don't think we ever really give a thought to actually what really matters to me and who I am. What can I live by? What can I not cope with dealing with?
Yeah, I think as well, it's when we say, oh, what is your purpose? It's more on actually like, who do I want to become? How do I want to live? And how do I want to feel? There's this thing, and we've often come up that, God forbid, but, we're all going to go out of this world in the same way, one way or another. That's fact. And if, in your eulogy, what would you like to be written about you? And if this is actually really quite, if you do it, if you're in the right moment, it can be very hard hitting. But most people will not give two hoots or remember you for your materialistic kind of big houses, flashy cars, whatever. People will remember you for how you made them feel, acts of kindness. You lit up a room with your smile. They will remember you for who you were as a person and how you made them feel, rather than the materialistic shit that you kind of own or have. And that's quite deep, actually, but it's kind of thinking, how do I want to be remembered? When it's my time to go, what do I want my legacy to be left behind as? That's, and then when you've thought about that, I think as well, we need to kind of become a bit more clear on what it is that we're striving for. Things aren't going to come to you when you don't totally know what it is that lights you up, what you enjoy. We need to know. It's all about, for me, I think it's all about the feeling.
Yeah, it's kind of about deciding how you want to spend your time in your life and what kind of impact you want to make as well. Exactly what Jodie's just said. What is that long-lasting feeling you want to leave with? And obviously, we're not talking about you're all going to snuff it at the end of this episode, but a few things. It's I might bore people to death, but have a little thing, just a few things about sitting down for a little minute and identifying your core strengths. What do you know you're bloody good at? So have a little think about that. And again, we come back to this every episode. You need to take actionable steps. They don't need to be huge. Okay, we're not asking anybody to give up any specific area of their life. We're just asking you to make steps. So, for example, if it is, I really, really feel like I want to help people more, then it could just be a simple case of going to a group and helping out, or
volunteering.
Exactly. Those little things. And I know we don't have much time. We're all running around like headless chickens and things like that. But you have got to make some time to make yourself feel better, because there is some scientific evidence that says, and don't ask me to quote the source because I can't, that if you lack a sense of purpose, then it can lead to anxiety, mental health issues, just generally feeling out of kilter in life. So it really is important to make some space for that, and focus on contribution. Okay, it's about what you can give back rather than what you can take. And the more that you give, the more, we know how karma works, baby, it comes back to you. So, you need to think about focusing on that contribution side of things, and then embrace the evolution. Okay, purpose is never going to be static. As we said at the beginning, you need to move forward with that. So do you think what sort of motivates you to purpose, Jode?
So I think it's very hard when you're thinking about yourself. And obviously I pondered on this because I knew this was this week's topic. So I've obviously kind of given it some thought for myself. And actually, if anybody does get stuck, ask your family, ask your friends, say, tell me 3 qualities that I have that you see in me. Because I know because the chances are you don't see them in yourself. So I think I've got a really good listening ear. I will always offer my time to listen and hold that space for somebody. That is something that naturally comes easy to me, and I genuinely just do it without even thinking. I have a huge desire to help everybody and anybody, to the point where we all know we can't help everybody and anybody, but I know that drives me. I am the person, if I seen somebody fall over in the street or, are upset, I just can't help myself. I will be there and I will be scooping them up off the floor, or I will be consoling them, and a lot of the time my family are like, why do you always have to get involved? I just can't help it. That is me. That is what I do. So I am a brilliant listener. I offer my heart to most. I think I do have some pearls of wisdom. I can sometimes think outside the box and deliver it, hopefully with care, and for people to feel like empowered by it, but not judged in any way. There's this, there's a quote by Albert Einstein, and I think there's speculation whether he did or he didn't ever say it. Who knows? Don't come for me. I don't totally know. But he definitely said, there's this saying, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life thinking it's stupid. So it's very much everybody, we all have these wonderful natural skills, traits. Some things come easier to us than they do to others, and it's absolutely homing in on these subtle things that we all have that we can offer to others, because I think this is the point of purpose. It has to be meaningful to others, and it has to come easy to us. There will always be skills and be knowledge to be learned around certain given topics if you want to kind of home in on certain areas, absolutely. But energetically, it needs to light us up, because that's what gives you that drive to make a difference. And it has to come relatively easy. Nobody is going to want to slog away years and years trying to be something that isn't naturally easy to them, because eventually, that will become detrimental to yourself. And I think that saying absolutely kind of highlights that everybody has their gifts. We just need to kind of home in and work out what ours are. And like I said, if you struggle to see that within yourself, certainly if you're quite self-critical like myself, ask around, ask those, choose wisely, definitely choose wisely, but ask the people that that know you well, that are your nearest and dearest, that will come back with, good points, and they might surprise you. They might see things in you don't even see in yourself. Hopefully they'll deliver it with love and care, which is why I say ask wisely. But yeah, that's, I think, a really good, starting point. And it isn't always what we expect. Somebody could be an amazing cook, and you'd straight away think, oh, we'll go, cater en masse. I don't know, feed the homeless. These are all wonderful, wonderful things to do. But actually, that might not. You might love to cook. You might be an amazing chef, but that might not light you up. That might not be your thing. But actually, writing a cookbook so that others can have this time in their own homes and create a lovely family meal to create that safe space might be the purpose. It might not be how you would think from having, if you're, from that skill set, it might not be the obvious. There might be a tangent that uses that skill set in a whole different way that will absolutely bring something for others.
Yeah, and I think we're a bit of a living example here of purpose, and I very much resonate with what you say, Jode. I feel I've not cracked it, because it's an evolving process, but over the years I've done a lot of work, because I've found myself drifting from kind of one thing to the next, and kind of not figuring out what it was I was supposed to be doing. But there was always a key denominator for me, and that was always people. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy supporting people, listening to people, and really trying to help them get the best from their lives. I'm a real big believer that life is bloody short, and you've got to make the most of it as you possibly can. And so for me, it is all about people. Now, the way in which I go around that is always slightly different, and I engage in that in every area of my life wherever I can. And this is what this podcast really is all about, isn't it? It's about supporting people, helping people on topics they may feel stuck with, generally telling people that they're not the only ones out there losing the plot on a daily basis. And, you know, and we're two people with no podcast experience whatsoever. And this took a lot of getting to, but bit by bit, you snip away and you do it. So you can do these things. It doesn't have to be life changing. It just needs to light you up. And we always say, don't we, like after we've done this, we always come away energized and feeling lit up by things. So what is it you can do? But you have to, I mean, trust me, I am tired. I am so tired. Every day I wake up tired. But doing this does give that energy release. So if you are somebody sat out there also thinking, yeah, well, I'd love to do that, Kelly. It's all very well sitting there doing your podcast. I'd love to, but I don't even know where to bloody start. And I'm exhausted. And by the time the kids go to bed or I finished work, I haven't got the energy. Trust me, you're talking to the converted, because I too am hanging. But somehow, if it motivates you, and that's the key, it's that motivation. You know, I'm not motivated to go to the gym. My purpose certainly isn't going to be helping people on their fitness journey. I know you're shocked, aren't you?
PT anytime soon.
No, well, you know, I considered it, but as I'm sat here thinking I look slightly 80s, like I'm just about to go and star on the set of Rivals. Watch it, it's very good if you haven't seen it. You know, that's never going to be it doesn't motivate me. I'm not going to motivate anybody else to do this, but hopefully, you know, you listen to the passion in our voices about things we've been through and experienced and how we come out the other end of it. It might motivate somebody else to think, I can do it too.
And I think you've touched on something else there, actually, as well. I think sometimes, you know, as we've already said, you know, your purpose will evolve as you go through on this life's journey. But actually, for a lot of people, their purpose comes after experiencing pain or grief or certain situations in one way or another that life's thrown at us. And I think it's very well known that actually, if you've truly embodied and been through something, an experience, and kind of come out the other side, and you've walked every step of that, that will absolutely encourage and enlighten and light you up to go help others going back through that, because you 100% resonate, you get it, you get every bit of it. So you are in the perfect position to help others to now navigate what you've just been through. So actually, sometimes our purpose does come from awful experiences, or, you know, that have brought up grief, pain, whatever. And it motivates us to then go and guide others on that journey. I think, you know, it would be very hard to lead, I don't know, maybe an AA meeting if you've never been an addict yourself, you know. You can't, you know, if you're championing, you know, like neurodiverse families, this is another mass key subject for me. I wouldn't have the passion and the energy and the enthusiasm behind that if I hadn't experienced that myself. You know, this whole new level of energy that we need to bring to show up, you know, to make a difference to others, it's a whole nother level. And normally that's because it's not something you just like, it's something you have felt, you have embodied, and it, you know, it really means something. That's what gives you the drive to move forwards. And everybody will have been through something or had something or enjoy something, but there'll be something out there for everybody where their whole energetic vibe just lifts. And, you know, I've mentioned the word flow a lot in other previous episodes, you know, that state of where things just keep on coming and you're like, doom, 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 this is all flowing in brilliantly, it's coming easily, I'm on it. That's when you know you're on to something. It's when it's not, and it's like you're forcing yourself or it's hard to do it. That's not your flow, and that's probably not going to take you to your purpose at the end of it. You know, we all have to evolve. We can't all be the masters of everything. I got told over the weekend, I had a brilliant reading, a spiritual reading at the Healing Weekend. And he was trying to say that you're here exactly as you should be. There is no thing as perfection. I was brought here for my purpose as a helper, apparently. But actually, the knowledge that I have today is the knowledge that I can share to the masses. Whoever needs that knowledge will find it and they'll take from it what they need. Next year, I'm going to have a whole load more more knowledge because I'm still walking this path. I'm still living my life. So I will have loads more knowledge, and then I can share that with hopefully an even bigger audience. You know, Kel and I, God knows where we'll be next year. Watch this space, who knows? But we are also still evolving. So you can't put off going out and getting, you know, and doing things until you feel you've got everything nailed down. You know, you might be at the journey of something. You might just have got into recovery and feel that you're not worthy of sharing that yet. Yes, you are. And then as you move through that recovery period, that knowledge comes, you then share that. We evolve, as does our purpose, and that hopefully just kind of builds and builds and builds. It's very much having the courage to go out there and live the life that you want to live, that makes you feel how you want to feel.
And yeah, we spoke a bit last week as well about why do I feel lost when everything looks so great in my life, you know? And I wanted to touch on, because there may be some people listening to this going, well, that's all very well and that's great and that's really motivational and fantastic, but I do feel lost. I don't know where to start. And actually, when you're in that state of feeling completely lost, it can be really hard to find the motivation for anything. And I think what I want to say is, if you are sat here listening to this and going, I haven't got the energy for this, I do feel completely lost, I don't know where I'm going, you are not alone. And that is a normal sensation to feel. We have all felt at one point like we are in this holding period, that we are stuck, that we know what lights us up, but we can't get there, we can't see it, we keep getting knocked back. And I think what I wanted to say is that's really normal. And that could be because you are in a holding space for a reason. You know, you can't move forward just yet because there are lessons you need to learn. There are people that need to be removed. There are something else that's waiting to come in. So don't sit there and beat yourself up because you just feel. There was a lady who asked a question at the healing weekend, and she just said, I just feel stuck. And sometimes, and it's really probably very unhelpful, but from a spiritual perspective, sometimes you are meant to be stuck in those spaces so that you can work through the things that then come in when you're ready for it. So yes, you need to take action. Yes, you need to do all the things that we have spoken about, but don't beat yourself up. If right now listening to this, you just aren't feeling it, replay it in 3, 4, 5, 6 months time, and you'll probably find that it'll have more meaning for you. It is quite normal to feel lost, but do the work. Figure out where that sense is coming from, what isn't working in your life, and again, what does light you up. But I just wanted to offer some reassurance there. It can take. I had a period, no word of a lie, of 4 years. 4 years. I knew I loved people. I knew I loved doing certain things, but my God, I couldn't move. Every direction was bloody blocked. And I've come out the other side of that so much more aligned and knowing more about who I am for sitting in that period, that, you know, it can be helpful. So don't necessarily feel that being lost is a negative place, as long as you're taking the actions to move through that.
Yeah, that's, I think everybody will experience times like that. And like you said, it's rather than panicking, it's knowing that that's, you know, that's exactly how and where you should be at that moment. It is a holding period. Another thing I kind of looked upon, and you know me, I do love my factual research.
Thank
but
God,
again,
Joe, thank God.
I don't know how factual
You're
it
stuck
is.
with me otherwise.
Again, don't hold me to it. But, you know, Steve Jobs apparently in his 2005 Stanford commencement speech said, you cannot connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. And I think, you know, that's what he's saying there, is that a lot of the time life does not make sense whilst you're living it, and you can't see the importance of something at the time. We almost want clarity kind of before we make decisions, but actually the clarity comes after we've made the decisions. And if we are in the middle of like uncertain random events, there is no kind of, at the time you're like, I don't get this, or, you know, or if you're having one thing chucked at you after another, like we feel we are at the moment, you can't make sense of it. And you're like, why is this happening? But it's when you look back years later that you can see, actually, you know, I got let go of in my job because, you know, it set me free to find other stuff. What, you know, whether you leave a relationship, friendship, whatever, you know, hindsight is an amazing thing, but often we will look back on events that made no sense at the time, and it's all those dots that then piece together to get to then that, you know, to where you are. So you don't need to know sometimes, you know, why these things are happening to you, or which is the, you know, which experiences are the key takeaways. We just need to know that what doesn't always make sense today will one day in the future totally make sense. If you're building a jigsaw puzzle and somebody, you know, gave you literally, I don't know, it's a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle, and they drip feed you, here's one piece. You're going to look at that piece and not have any idea of the final picture. Then they'll give you another one, and maybe after 10 you're still confused, but you've got an idea of color maybe within this picture. After 100 you can just start to possibly get a theme. By the time you get to 300-400, you're nearly there, and it's starting to become much clearer. And then one day that last piece fits in, and there, that is kind of how life works. And it's frustrating because we want to know the whole picture right now, but actually we never will. The whole picture really comes right at the end as we're leaving this world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really, really good point. And I think something you mentioned there about the past as well, sometimes we dwell too much on it. Sometimes we look, and I love the analogy, if there's a reason why the rearview mirror in a car is smaller than the front, because we should be looking forward. And I think sometimes we get so stuck on what happened to us or the things that we've been through, and we can become a bit set in a victim mindset. And the longer you live in that kind of victim mindset, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that in a flippant way. You know, we've all been through some, and there is people that have been through some really, really awful stuff. But if you allow that to define your future and you stay stuck in that past, you're never going to find what motivates you. You're never going to find, and some of the most inspiring people in the world are people that have been through the worst kind of shit and make something of that, you know, give back, help people. So what I would say as well is absolutely mourn, go through, deal with everything that you've had, and then try your best to channel that into something positive. That too will help your purpose. And I love the whole analogy of you don't understand what's happening at the time and why. And people who certainly go through really horrific things, feels like there's never any justification for those things. But if you're able to take those experiences and help others or make them positive and move forward with that, then gee, are you socking it to them? You know, you really are. And everybody, you all have this in you. You all have the ability to find something that lights you up and work for that. And even if it is 1 minute a day of doing that, or, you know, an hour a week, you know, it's worth doing, because it's what helps you move through the shitty stuff, because we are still going to have to do life. We are still going to have that human experience. But this really, having that purpose really does help with that positive mindset and moving you forward. So I think really, again, it is focusing on the positives, finding what lights you up. Energy never lies. When you feel buoyant and happy and lit up, take notice of what produces that, because it doesn't lie. It's a real thing. And I'm really, really passionate about energy. You feel it the minute you meet somebody. You feel it the minute you walk in a room. And that's where you need to start. So I don't know if you've got anything.
No, I think you've covered everything. But I think just know that we don't need, you know, huge grand gestures here. I think it's like we said, if the key takeaways are, really look at it within as to what lights you up, what brings you energy, what comes easily to you that might not to others, and it won't be necessarily, you know, what you think. Don't get swayed by other people's expectations, whether that be friends, parents, partners, online influences, whatever. Like, we are all here for totally different reasons. We all have amazing gifts. That is 100% fact. We all have such amazing gifts and talents, but they are all totally different. You know, we've just done a social post now about our fingerprints. We are here to be unique. We are not here to be the same as anybody else. So absolutely embrace that. And actually some of your quirks that people might love or not love about you might be the biggest gifts you can give to others. So don't let anybody else dictate kind of how you move with this. And also just know that it doesn't have to be huge, big steps today. It could just be walking the dog, having a conversation, reading a book, listening to a podcast. These are all tiny little steps that kind of just build curiosity within something that you're interested in. You don't need to go out and sign yourself up to kind of go, I don't know, do the 3 Pinks challenge and raise lots of money for charity. That is an amazing cause. And the achievement that you would feel from doing something like that, would be immense. But we don't have to, not everything has to be on such grand scales. It can be much more in micro steps, but over time this all builds. And don't get put off by the setbacks. Unfortunately, life is not linear. It doesn't just beautifully climb in one big long sweep. It goes up, down, back, round. That is life. So when the curveball comes, just
keep going,
accept, acknowledge, sit with, move forwards when you're ready.
Well, I have a couple of questions just to leave you with, to journal on. If you are one of those wonderful people that is journaling at the end of these sessions, you will be our star listeners. First thing to think about, what do people naturally come to me for? As Jode mentioned earlier, are you a good listener? Are you a good baker? What do people go, I must go and see Johnny about? Back on those names. If money wasn't an issue, how would you spend your time? And that's a really crucial one.
Money and failure.
Yeah, because that really tells you that if life had no obstacles, what would be lighting you up?
And you had no shits given on what people thought.
Yeah. What breaks my heart enough that I would like to change it? That's quite a sort of passionate one. When have I felt most alive? And, your purpose isn't about proving anything to the world, as Jode just said. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It's about becoming more of who you are. And if you can, making somebody else's lives better along the way. And I am sure that most of you are doing that without even realizing it. So I think you're pretty awesome.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Well,
another episode done.
I think that's us. Okay, we'll leave you be now to go and crack on with your days. But thanks as always for listening to us. And we will be back again next week.
We will. Yeah.
Have a great one, guys.
Okay, take care. Bye. Bye.